Welcome to Public House, intimate conversations with people making a difference in the Hudson Valley. And now, from Paula's Public House in Poughkeepsie, New York, here's Paula Young.
Hi, I'm Paula Young. Welcome to this episode of Public House, where we are once again on the road and once again in the offices of County Executive Marcus Molinaro. Welcome again.
Well, thanks for having you back.
I am very happy to be here to talk to you and continue our conversation. Let's talk about the budget. Let's talk about the fact that it's happening right now and people are coming up to me in the restaurant and saying, we are moving to South Carolina where we can live for $1,000 a year in taxes. What's going on?
Well, it's New York. I mean, New York shoulders the highest burden of taxation of any state in America, and because of it, we lead the nation in outmigration. More people leave New York than any other state in the country except for Alaska. And in the case of Alaska, it's probably the weather.
There's no women in Alaska. Only men.
I have no comment. But that said, because this state forces more state spending onto local property taxpayers, property taxes are arbitrarily high. So if you go to Virginia, where my in-laws are from, the state government pays for many of those services. Well, in New York, they devolve those costs down onto local governments like ours, school districts like ours. So what ends up happening, of course, is local property taxes are arbitrarily much, much higher. Now, in Dutchess, I'm happy to say, first, admittedly, county government only represents about 10% of what you pay in property taxes any given year. But over the last 5 years, we've cut county property taxes. Each of the last 5 years, we've reduced the county property tax levy. Each of the last 4 years, because of economic growth, we've been able to lower the tax rate. So the average taxpayer in Dutchess has seen a modest reduction in their county bill. The problem is, though, that that may have been overcome by a school tax or some other increase someplace else. So we're doing what we can to control spending. In fact, over the last 8 years, we've been able to hold spending to about 1% a year, but ultimately and reduce property taxes. But unless Albany takes control of what is massive spending forced down onto this very finite tax base, we're going to continue to lose people, businesses, farms, and families to other states in America.
Okay, massive spending. So what are the first three things they're spending all this money on?
Well, the state budget is education, health care, and everything else.
Right.
So those are big costs. I mean, Medicaid is New York State's largest sort of health care expenditure, and that program, Medicaid in New York, is the largest of any state in the country. In fact, we spend more than several other states combined.
And I don't think you're going to get a lot of pushback from people because people want to have health care.
Yeah.
Education, however, when you have families leaving, is it mostly people over 50 that are leaving because are schools getting emptier? And if schools are getting emptier, then how are we justifying school taxes going up?
Well, there's a lot going on there, right? So first, 18 to 35-year-olds we're losing to other states for job opportunities and higher and lower costs. Seniors and retirees we're losing to other states because they're not making enough income to stay here. And then those, the mass middle, are sort of either holding on or happy to be here. And that's a balancing act. As far as schools, listen, there are a number of reasons why population is either stagnant or decreasing. Millennials aren't having children like previous generations, so something like 62% of all counties in America are actually losing population simply because people aren't producing more children. But the reduction in children doesn't automatically mean a reduction in cost. School buildings still cost the same to heat. The roof still needs to be repaired. There's certain expenditures that are just sort of fixed. You know this in a business, right? You might get more revenue, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're making more profit. So that's a lot going on as far as school taxes. But ultimately, again, it's not a question of do we spend on the right things. I'm happy to have those debates. I mean, yeah, people want us to be effective in spending Medicaid services. Yes. I benefit from Medicaid services. My daughter gets services that are Medicaid supported. I lived on food stamps as a child. I know the value of Medicaid. The question is, are we effective in delivering the service? So when I came into office, Dutchess had a $40 million budget deficit. That's 10% of a budget I only have 30% control over, right? 70% is mandated by Albany. At the same time, we were in the throes of the recession, 70% increase in mandated social service and mental health services. We were looking at a very significant crisis. We didn't cut the delivery of service. We decided to shrink the size, scale, and scope of county government, demand greater efficiency, use technology to deliver services, and we rebounded. We consolidated departments, we cut back on the workforce with no layoffs, we reduced spending while at the same time improving the delivery of service. Here we are today. Fund balance has been replenished, the highest bond rating of any county in the state of New York, 5 years of tax cuts, controlled spending. My point being that Albany doesn't need to get into this debate, and even Washington, this old argument, well, if you don't want to spend so much, you need to cut, whole programs. That assumes that we don't waste money. Albany wastes money. New York State wastes money. I think we need to be effective in the delivery of the service, and then we can have a debate about the value of that service.
In a household, when there is much more expense than there is income coming in, we have to figure out how to make that loaf of bread last longer, the chicken last longer. How specifically has Dutchess County done that?
Well, first I'd say to you that's an analogy we often use, but it doesn't prove out in America. Generally speaking, when people have enough revenue, they borrow. And in fact, credit card debt, personal debt continues to spiral. Tuition costs continue. So I just say to you,
no savings.
Right. So my point being that it is a good analogy. It's the way we should be living. If you don't bring in enough money, you should cut back on expenditures. But sadly, too many people are forced into borrowing to make ends meet. So that said, what did we do? First, when I came into office, I said to every department and I said to every employee, give me a 5, 10, and 15% plan. What does that mean? I want you to identify 5, 10, and 15% cuts to your agency, your department, your service, and tell me what that means. Well, everybody was worried, right? We can't cut 15%. We never had to cut 15%. I wanted them thinking about how we would make the system and the government more efficient. We also leaned on technology. We said to our IT department, let's use more of our innovation within county government to deliver services that ordinarily might be delivered through heavy overhead costs or more workforce. And then I said, let's look at the services we deliver. For instance, when we plow snow, historically, for whatever reason, all the people would drive into Poughkeepsie, get their snow plows, and drive back out. We said, how about we decentralize the delivery? I know this, but in a time where maybe you weren't worried about pitching the pennies, right. So those kind of changes. We even, installed, sensor-sensitive light switches so that the lights would shut off at the end of the day. Lastly, just as a simple explanation, every county executive prior to me had to sign 5 original copies of every contract we enter into. Do you know why? Neither did anybody here.
Right.
So 1,200 contracts a year, five separate contracts the executive would sign. I said, how about we just sign one and scan the rest? And that saved like $35,000 in paper a year. So my point being is we looked at everything, big and small, and tried to question how we delivered it. Could we deliver it more efficiently? Could we be more effective? Could we hold the line on cost? And we made significant changes to the delivery of government, and I would say the average citizen didn't notice. Didn't notice a reduction in service, didn't notice a reduction in sort of program delivery, but they allowed us to sacrifice over those first 2 years, and then we rebounded. Albany should be doing the same. Every level of government should do the same thing. Everybody should do the same thing. Why do we do it that way? And if the answer is, well, that's the way we've always done it, then we should probably question it.
I would agree. And people aren't going to notice if there's no impact on them. They only notice when they either read that there's an impact and they should wake up, or they actually feel it.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about that said. Poughkeepsie is a big city here. It's also a town. And then there are all the other little towns that make up Dutchess County. And there are grumbles that I hear that Poughkeepsie gets the lion's share of the assistance, the attention. Talk to me about that.
Well, first, 20 towns, 8 villages, and 2 cities, and I love every one of them. And I, of course, come from one of the smallest municipalities in Dutchess, mayor of a village, second smallest community in Dutchess. So for me...
It sounds like it should be in the Swiss Alps.
Yes, fair enough.
Tivoli.
So for me, every community matters. Every hamlet, every village, it's very special, and all of it has to be woven together. Yes, Poughkeepsie is the county seat. Where Poughkeepsie goes, so goes the county. I mean, if Poughkeepsie fails and falters, the county is going to have a hard time rebounding. Not to mention, when you travel the world, if you say you're from the Hudson Valley, they're going to say, something like, are you from Rhinebeck or Poughkeepsie?
Yes.
If you're from Dutchess, you're from Rhinebeck or maybe Millbrook or Pauling. So the point being that people
Beacon's
associate.
not going to like this.
I love Beacon.
I know, but
I'm a Beacon boy.
they want to say it's Beacon.
Well, I don't know. Some people in Beacon, I think, are happy when they're not noticed. But that said, it is the county seat. So with that comes, by the way, the requirement that certain services actually are delivered here, the court system, and with that means there is a higher demand for certain government-supported services. But we've diversified the way we deliver. Dutchess County, as a partner, works with East Fishkill to drive economic development. East Fishkill is leading the county in economic growth because they have economic growth policies. We support them. Fishkill and Beacon. Beacon is not only an engine of economic, but cultural and arts opportunities. We support that. Farming in Eastern Dutchess and Northern Dutchess, once you could have written the obituary for agriculture in Dutchess County, now it's growing again. Why? Because we invest in protecting farmland and invest in opening up new markets.
Yes.
Where I come from, waterfront, Hudson Riverfront development, infrastructure development. We've diversified the way we deliver service, and we partner with our municipalities like no other county in the state of New York.
But we also have a lot of poverty in Poughkeepsie.
We do.
A great many. And it seems like the poor come to Poughkeepsie, or the poor haven't left Poughkeepsie, or there's no way to seem to, I don't know how to affect it. When I drive through downtown Poughkeepsie, I see streets and neighborhoods of people that look very depressed and areas that look very depressed. And it seems to be centralized here.
Well, there are a couple of things. There's some sort of historical significance to that. Cities became very populated by people who couldn't afford to live in the outer areas because the jobs weren't there, the transportation wasn't there, the educational opportunities weren't there. So they started to migrate inward, right, towards city centers. That's historical in America. The suburbanization of America was all those independent folks coming back from World War II who had some money in their pocket and decided to buy and build houses. So that's something that every county, every community, and every city has dealt with. The other, though, is in New York, the delivery of services have to be at the county seat. The county seat's Poughkeepsie. Right. So social services, the court system, the jail, all have to be in the county seat. That does mean that that's a central delivery point for services, so to speak. And the other is cities. Cities have had a hard time rebounding. Again, we suburbanized America. Dutchess County was living high in the hog during suburbanization. Malls being built, homes being built, IBM prospering. And the cities faltered. Now the cities are rebounding. People want to live in city centers again, and because of that, two things. One, good thing. One, the need to reinvest in the cities is happening in a holistic way, not in a gentrified way, meaning we don't want to push people out. So to those folks who live in those neighborhoods, those are homes to them. And so number one, we need to respect that. Number two, we need to make smart investments. And number three, we need to ensure that the cities become self-sustaining. And they are across America. And Poughkeepsie's starting to see that, like other cities in the Hudson Valley.
Well, I have to stop.
We do.
I have more questions.
We can do this again.
So we're going to do this again.
Okay, fair
Thank
enough.
you. That was great.
You bet. Thanks.
Thank you very much for tuning in. I have so many more questions for the county executive, and I will be asking them in the next episode. So be sure and tune in. Thanks. Thank you, Marcus.
Hi, I'm Paula Young, and I'm the proprietor here of Paula's Public House. Do join me for good food, good cheer, and good fellowship. We are here, we have fun, and we'd love to have you be a part of it. Come on down.